They told him God was like a father, a kind old man with a beard, watching from above. In Switzerland, where snow blanketed rooftops like the purest thoughts of innocence, that image was painted early, softly, like bedtime lullabies. God was love. God was forgiving, but God was also distant, quiet, polite, a gentleman who never interrupted. So when Elias knelt at his childhood bedside, his prayers felt like postcards to a heaven too far to reply. He called him Father, but it felt more like a whisper into a silent sky. He grew up in tidy towns with flower boxes in every window. The churches were beautiful. Stained glass told ancient stories in frozen light. The sermons were sweet, the music heavenly. But something always felt out of place, like he was trying to warm his soul with a painting of fire instead of the fire itself. His father, a soft-spoken professor, told him religion was a comfort, not a conviction. God is like Dad, he'd say with a smile, kind, patient. But don't worry too much about what he wants. Just be good. That's enough. Elias believed him, until life started asking questions his father's voice couldn't answer. It was during his 20s, at university in Zurich, that the quiet unraveling began. Philosophy classes scratched at the polished surface of his belief. Nietzsche's echo, God is dead, wasn't a war cry anymore. It was a mirror. Was God really there, or just an inherited illusion wrapped in poetry? He read, he searched, he tried Buddhism for a while, meditated in the mountains, even fasted on weekends. Still, the void remained. Maybe I'm not spiritual, he thought. Maybe some people are just built for belief and others are not. But deep down, he didn't want that to be true. Then came the fire. It wasn't a blaze in the forest, nor a tragedy on the news. It was inside, a gnawing ache. His mother was diagnosed with cancer. The woman who used to sing lullabies in French while combing his hair now lay trembling in sterile hospital beds. He watched her shrink, not just in body but in hope. The God who was supposed to comfort had gone mute. One evening, as snow fell outside the hospital window, Elias sat beside her bed. Her eyes, sunken yet tender, met his. "Pray for me," she whispered. He did. But to whom? He walked out that night, fists clenched in his pockets, breath steaming like smoke from a soul on fire. That's when he wandered into the Turkish bakery down the road. He wasn't hungry. He just didn't want to be alone. Behind the counter was an old man with olive skin and a long gray beard. He greeted Elias with warmth, offered tea, and asked what troubled him. Elias didn't answer at first, but the silence between them felt safe, like a bridge instead of a wall. Eventually, he spoke. "I don't think I believe in God anymore," he said quietly. The old man nodded slowly. "Which God don't you believe in?" Elias blinked. "The one I was taught. The father figure in the sky, distant, silent, maybe dead." The old man smiled gently. "Good. I don't believe in that God either." Elias looked up. "Would you like to hear something?" the man asked. Without waiting for an answer, he went to the back, returned with a small speaker, and pressed play. Then it happened. The voice, not a voice, a recitation. It wasn't singing, it wasn't speaking. It was something in between, rhythmic, thunderous, gentle, piercing, healing. The Qur'an? Elias didn't know what was being said, but he felt like he was being addressed. Not talked to, not taught, not entertained. Addressed. It was like someone had been waiting to speak to him all his life. He sat frozen as the verses flowed. His chest felt tight, like a truth he didn't know he knew was being pulled out of him. He didn't understand a word, but he understood everything. What is this?" he finally asked. The man smiled. "The Qur'an." Elias frowned. "But I don't speak Arabic." "You don't need to," the man replied. "The soul has ears." That night, Elias went home with a copy of the Qur'an translated into German. He opened it slowly, expecting to find more of the same religious language he grew up with. Gentle metaphors, distant promises. But what he found was something else. A voice that didn't ask for belief. It demanded attention. A voice that didn't comfort the ego. It crushed it, only to raise the soul higher. It was not the voice of a distant father. It was the voice of the Creator, the Master, the Sustainer, the Judge, the One. It was not soft or sentimental. It was thunder wrapped in mercy, fire wrapped in light. It didn't say, "Come here if you like." It said, "This is the truth." Elias didn't sleep that night. He read for hours, page after page. And we have certainly created man, and we know what his soul whispers to him, and we are closer to him than his jugular vein. He wept. All his life, God was introduced to him as a concept, a metaphor, a father figure. But now, God was a reality, not someone to imagine, but someone to submit to. Days turned to weeks. Elias couldn't stop reading. The more he read, the more he found his questions dismantled. Not with sweet talk, but with piercing clarity. He read about Jesus, not as the Son of God, but as a prophet, a servant, a man of God. He read about Moses, Noah, Abraham, all names he thought he knew, but now through a lens untainted by centuries of dogma. He read the story of Mary, not just a mother of Christ, but a woman chosen above all others. He read about the day of judgment, heaven, hell, mercy, justice, balance. This was not religion as comfort. This was religion as reality. And the most shocking part, it made sense. No riddles, no contradictions, no mysterious trinity, no sins inherited from others. Just you, your deeds, and the one who created you. Elias tried to keep it private. He still attended church with his family, still smiled politely during prayers, but inside a revolution was erupting. Then one night, his father found the Qur'an on his desk. "What is this?" he asked, voice trembling. Elias hesitated. "It's the Qur'an. I've been reading it." His father looked wounded. "Why would you need that? Haven't we taught you enough about God?" Elias looked at him, eyes clear. "You taught me God was like a dad. But I don't need a dad in heaven. I need the truth. And I think I found it." His father walked away in silence. It was the beginning of the storm. The storm came in whispers at first. Awkward silences at dinner, cold glances across the table, unspoken fears simmering behind polite smiles. His mother, now recovering slowly, noticed the change. Her son, the quiet, curious boy she once rocked to sleep, was changing in ways she couldn't name, only feel. One afternoon, she sat beside him on the porch, a soft blanket draped over her thin shoulders. "Elias," she said gently, "are you leaving the faith?" He looked at her with the kind of love that hurts. "Mama," he whispered, "I'm not leaving God. I'm finally meeting Him." Her eyes welled up. "But we raised you with love." "I know," he said, taking her frail hand in his, "and I'm grateful. But love isn't the same as truth. You gave me warmth. Islam is giving me clarity." She didn't speak again that evening. The silence between them was not empty. It was overflowing. Not with anger, but sorrow, change. Even when it's divine, often looks like betrayal to those who've never seen its light. He started spending more time at the Turkish bakery. Not for bread, for brotherhood. The old man's name was Yusuf. He introduced Elias to younger Muslims. Engineers, students, artists, who shattered every stereotype Elias had unknowingly carried. They weren't backward. They weren't violent. They weren't brainwashed. They were peaceful, disciplined, humble, powerful in their restraint. And above all, they were in love with something greater than themselves. 5 daily prayers, fasting in Ramadan, giving charity, constant remembrance. It was not just belief, it was a lifestyle, a structure, a discipline of the soul. Elias began to pray in secret. At first, it felt awkward. The movements, the words in Arabic, the washing before prayer. But then, something shifted. As he bowed, as he pressed his forehead to the ground, he felt what no cathedral, no church pew, no hymn ever gave him: submission. Not fear, not guilt, not confusion. Submission, a letting go of control, a surrender to something infinitely wise, intensely near. In that moment, it wasn't about understanding God. It was about standing, no, falling, before him. The tears came again. Every time he prostrated, something inside him melted. The pride, the questions, the loneliness. They all faded in that single act of putting his forehead to the earth, acknowledging that he was nothing, and God was everything. He started learning Arabic, not because he had to, but because he wanted to feel the Qur'an in its original breath, to not just read the words, but absorb them, taste them, live them, and every verse cut deeper. Indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. He remembered all the therapy sessions, the hours spent journaling, the guided meditations. None of them came close to this one line. He remembered the long nights staring at ceilings, trying to convince himself life had meaning. Now he didn't need to convince himself. He could feel it. But as his heart expanded, his world contracted. Friends stopped calling. Classmates whispered. Even professors looked at him differently. "You've changed," one of them said during a seminar break. "You were such a critical thinker. Now you're religious." Elias smiled. "Maybe thinking critically led me here." They didn't know how to respond. The final test came from home. One evening, his father entered his room, holding the Qur'an in one hand and a photo of Elias as a baby in the other. "I remember baptizing you," he said, "holding you in that tiny white robe, dedicating you to God. And now this." Elias stood slowly. "Papa, I haven't betrayed you. I'm honoring the God you dedicated me to. I've just found him in a way that speaks to my soul." His father's voice cracked. "But Islam, they say it's harsh, controlling." The Elias stepped closer. "The harshness is for the ego, not the soul. Islam doesn't control me. It frees me. It gives me purpose, structure, accountability." His father turned away. That night, Elias prayed Fajr before dawn alone, while the world still slept, and then he made the decision. He texted Yusuf, "I'm ready." That Friday, surrounded by a small group of brothers in a modest masjid tucked between a barber shop and a tailor in Zurich, Elias stood before them and uttered the words that would forever divide his life in two. "Ashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah." I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. He said it once, then again, louder, stronger, each word a sword, cutting away a lifetime of confusion. There were no fireworks, no dramatic lights, just quiet tears, tight hugs, and the deep, overwhelming peace of a man who had finally come home. That night, he didn't hide his Qur'an. He placed it openly on his shelf. He walked to his mother's room, kissed her on the forehead, and whispered, "Thank you for teaching me to seek truth." She looked up, weak but smiling faintly. "And did you find it?" He nodded. "I didn't just find it, Mama. It found me."